If you have to self-abandon, where you are is not where you're meant to be. We've got treating drama as therapy, chaos addiction and misprocessing, and faking confidence again, insecurity, pretense, and self-doubt. And I wanted to do a reading this morning on banishment, like what we may need to banish from our energy. There's a lot. The magpie says hello as well. There's a lot going on in the macrosphere right now. And I know I am still very overwhelmed by everything that's happening. And a part of that reason for the overwhelm is not having the bandwidth to deal with it. We're just at capacity, so many of us. So how do we free up bandwidth? Dealing with something on the microsphere is one way, to kind of free up some stuff that's going on with us. Um, and something I've found over the years is how much energy I was expending into like lukewarm relationships. Just relationships that are a part of your life that, like, they're not doing anything bad, but they're not really doing anything good for your life. Not that people have to do things to contribute, but it's just like relationships of circumstance that are eating up bandwidth that you really do need for other things. So I was reading these two cards as the energy we're expending trying to fit in. And this is absolutely not to shame anybody for trying to fit in, because that is a normal thing, to want to fit in, to want to belong. So let's get some cards and we'll get into it. And I've got the Kawaii Tarot here. It's been on my mind a lot. It's just so cute. They're so round. Let's get this first card out. What do we need to know about conformity and fitting in? We have here Three of Wands in reverse. That's a lot of cards. I'm just taking that top one. It's so round. I'm still looking for an oracle deck that reaches the apex of cuteness there. But so a journey halted because we're trying to fit in. Yeah, we could be headed in the wrong direction. Um, I've talked a lot on this channel about my experience with individuation and kind of my core values and such coming crashing to the ground and returning to who I always was. And a thing that halted that progress was trying to fit in, trying to keep up with the gossip and everything that's going on with everybody, when really, like, gossip is like nails on a chalkboard to me. And the faking the confidence, that's like being a stranger in a strange land. Like, when you're around people that accept you for who you are, you don't have to fake anything. You have a safe environment to make mistakes, to make a fool of yourself, to make jokes that don't land, stuff like that. And so leaning in too far into the trying to fit in, that can halt wherever it is you're trying to go. And you might not even know that yet, because the trying to fit in may be a form of blinders, as it were. And so we've got the Six of Cups here, and that came out sideways. That's the nostalgia card and the soulmate card. So that's kind of interesting because I feel like there might be some maybe self-convincing that maybe even a degree of limerence with the past that like I'm supposed to um, fit in, and there's a lot of social conditioning that comes with conformity and such, and it's like a relationship that will never return on its investments. That's what I mean by the use of limerence there. And so on one side, you're keeping yourself anchored to something that just isn't meant for you. And it's also keeping you away from something that is meant for you. Like, that saying, the longer you spend with someone who isn't meant for you, it's the less time you get with someone who is meant for you. And it doesn't necessarily need to be like a romantic relationship, it can be anything. You know, business ventures, friends, experiences, traveling to new places that you've always wanted to see. And I understand the money thing, you know, and that might be a reason you're trying to fit in is financial constraints. Because I mean, in the workplace, it's a big deal if you're not seen in the right light by the people in charge, which I think is dumb. This is why I don't like hierarchies, because I don't believe that your life should be just at the whim of somebody else who, like, are we even screening for personalities on this? Like, why do they get so much power over someone else's life? It doesn't make sense to me. But we've got the Eight of Cups, yeah, leaving a situation you need to leave. Easier said than done. I totally understand. And it is cups, so could be very emotional. There's that magpie again. Really loud this morning. Further away, but hmm. That could be a message from spirit, like some emphasis of like, hey, it's time to go. Like, we know this is hard, but it's time to go. So take some time to sit with that decision because the Eight of Cups, that's the Saturn and Pisces card. That's a lot of heavy energy. And in the Rider Waite, the person who's walking away, they're walking away from a dried up river. Like, things are just done there for more reasons than one. And I thought it'd be nice to do a coffee reading this morning. I actually ended up taking a sick day today just because that macrosphere stuff really is getting to me. And yeah, take care of yourself. Take your PTO. It won't take itself. And that coffee actually, it's a coffee I used to get in K cups for the Keurig brewers, but I found it by the bag. It's a original donut shop coffee, the dark roast. It's really good. But on the left here, it's a barrier to leaving. Oh, two. Avoiding eye contact like a pro, social anxiety, shame, discomfort, and crying in the shower, isolation, breakdown, and vulnerability. So, clearly not fitting in where you are. Hmm. And that can really bog down the synapses, like that bandwidth issue I was talking about, because it's really hard to engage in like creative problem solving when your bandwidth is at capacity or over capacity. So a lot of hermit mode to try and maybe absorb the not fitting in, because that hurts. Like when you've been trying to fit in maybe a workplace or something like that, or even your own family, and then coming to that conclusion that you don't fit in here. That doesn't feel good. That really hits on a deep, like, evolutionary wound. Um, because way back when, in tribal living, if you didn't fit in with the tribe, or even worse, if you were doing something that was actively harmful to the tribe, you get booted. And then that's kind of it for you. We were really dependent on community at one point. Um, the ability to survive as an island is a fairly new advent. Tell me more about this hermit mode. So this is like the breakaway from the trying to fit in. Got a couple. Is that Nine of Swords? Yes. And in reverse, so, nightmares, like relieved. And the Empress. Look how cute. They're so cute. So it's like once you break away from this crowd, whatever group you found yourself wrapped up in, it's like coming into your own after that. Like I'm trying to think. I don't know. Like I imagine it would be like pregnancy when they're giving birth and there's like the final push before the baby is out, like the intensity like builds and builds and builds, and then relief. And it's a whole new life. But an extremely painful process to get there. Because if you're dealing with isolation in like a workplace setting, something like that, that is workplace bullying, like, or even like retaliation, things like that, getting ostracized. That this is for your own personal feelings, not legal advice, because those things have legal definitions and things like that that have real implications on somebody's psyche, and those can be very like psychically wounding experiences to go through. Because in that workplace setting, like, we have to be there, you know, not optional in this economy. Oh, and there's the Hermit. Perfect. Again, so freaking cute. But in reverse, so maybe we have gone into isolation. Um, and I mean, if it's protecting you from a group that's being crappy towards you, do what you gotta do. I mean, I'm not gonna knock you for that. Like, do the self checks, temp check with yourself, make sure you're feeling okay as you're going through that. Um, but if a group work, family, friends, whatever, is being crummy towards you, the solution is not to go try and be like amenable to them. Like there's that urge that like you want to fix things and smooth things over and whatnot, but you're not something to fix. That this is the like, if people aren't accepting you for who you are just unconditionally and giving you the basics, like basic consideration, basic respect, those do not need to be earned. Those should be given freely. Unless, provided a reason to retract those on either end of that table. But, like, I've met people that think respect needs to be earned, and they're the biggest tools. They really are. Like, trust needs to be earned, yeah, but respect? No. That's for everybody. But on the right here, what will help? What will help us get through this hermit mode? On the random dice roll, we've got Aquarius, Venus, and fifth house. And fifth house is self-expression and play are a couple things that really stood out to me for that, and both things that require vulnerability to really foster. Ghosted again. Rejection, silence, and confusion. Seen, never replied. And I think this is coming from you. Like, I think this is your advice. Like, as you're pulling away, get comfortable being a ghost, you know? Because it's hard to detach. But when you do that. Like, fully detach and get comfortable with being the villain. Even though you know that you have tried to make this work. You've tried to smooth things over. You've put in effort to try and, like, put together a lunch or something like that, like, whatever. And you get blown off, but then when you pull away, suddenly it's like a thing. I don't know if you've been through anything like that, but it's so incredibly frustrating. And there seems to be some, like, memory lapses on their behavior towards you that led to you pulling away. It's like typically it's men that say, or at least from what I hear, like, the divorce came out of nowhere and whatnot. Like, no, it didn't. It did not. Y'all have been fighting about the dishes for 6 months. Like, let's be so for real right now. And yeah, it's just like all those little, but things that turn generally women into being nags, where we have to bring up the same thing over and over again. And, like, did you think we were joking when we brought those things up? And then we finally get fed up and we leave, and they're like, oh, what? Wait, let me start to work on it now. Like, no, dude, you had your chance. And the same thing happens in workplaces too. Like, at the end, now, after we've been arguing, now you're gonna come to the table with some sort of negotiation or something? How about no? Because that's just insulting, actually. I'll take that. 4. We've got the 7 of Wands, 5 of Pentacles, both in reverse, 6 of Pentacles, and the Lovers in reverse. Oh. So, 7 of Wands, that's my surrender card, be still and know that I am God. And then Five of Pentacles, that's read more positively in the reverse. That's like the relief of destitution. And then equal give and take, and then unequal give and take with the lover. So there's a conflict. So it's like you've got people who are not surrendering to the way that you're acting. Like if you've pulled away, maybe ghosted, low contact, no contact, whatever, um, there may be some resistance to their contribution to this outcome. And you don't have to explain it. I'm here to say closure is a myth. You do what is best for you. Because at the end of the day, this might sound harsh, but whatever situation we're talking about here is coming to an end. It didn't come to an end on its own. Like, they were there too. You're not everybody's therapist. You're not everybody's coach. You're not everybody's parent. They're adults. They were there too. They can reflect. They can think about their actions. Um, I think it's a courtesy, maybe, to let people know that you're not dead. But beyond that, things are coming to an end. There's only so much you can do, and you really have to consider yourself, like, how much more effort am I going to put into something that's ending? Because how much is that costing you in mental health? I forgot about my breakfast alarm again. um, but yeah, like I had talked about my taking my mental health day today because I need it, you know? And I don't know, some people do frown on like taking Mondays off, whatnot. That's when you need a day, you need a day, and it's been exceptionally big stuff happening. And like, what good would I be just pressing on when I already know, like, I need time? People don't seem to think about that. Like, I'm not just, I'm not gonna be my regular productive. I'll be way less because I'm walking in with less fuel. And it's like the lukewarm relationships I had talked about at the beginning as well. Like, how much energy are you expending on, there was another word for this, like a psychologist used on Instagram. I can't remember. But just those tepid relationships that you're both kind of fillers in each other's lives. Like, I'm not, don't want to knock anybody on either side, but it's like when you're consistently relieved that plans are canceled, or if you find yourself like a sudden wave of exhaustion prior to your plans or something, like repeatedly with the same person, like your body's telling you something's going on, that something's not right. But the Six of Pentacles and then the Lovers in reverse, this is like trying to get water from a dry well. It's just not there. The love isn't there. And that doesn't mean it's personal. It doesn't mean it has anything to do with you personally. Sometimes fits just aren't there with people. Some people don't jive. And that's okay. Now, there's, of course, the like, take it with a grain of salt. If you're in a work situation, you are owed, entitled to a functioning and cohesive working environment to where you can make a livelihood, regardless of how everybody feels about each other. Um, but outside of that, in your personal life, don't do that to yourself. Don't waste yourself on people who don't appreciate you. And don't change for those people either. That's another thing. If, like what I said at the beginning, if you have to self-abandon, that's not where you belong. If there's some sort of expectation that you have to change something fundamentally about yourself, that's not for you. Like, I spent my childhood being both simultaneously too much and not enough. Is torture. It, like, that back and forth, that like psychological push and pull, that so screws up a growing psyche. And doing that to yourself in your adult life, it'll cause like real strain in your mind and your identity. And it's scary to kind of go out on the iceberg on your own. But I would choose the iceberg every time. You know, I've always felt a little bit callous, I guess, for not regretting choosing estrangement. But I never would have recovered myself. I never would have regained my authenticity had I not gone my own way. And it hurts and it sucks that that's the way it had to be. But that's the way it had to be. I didn't get there on my own. So for this last position, is there anything that can ease some of this? Kind of smooth it over. So we've got heavy energy with the hermit mode and you enforcing your boundaries. Because people say a lot about ghosting. I rarely hear reflection on, did I contribute to that at all? Sometimes the answer is no. Sometimes the answer is yes. You know, I have certainly pushed people away with my behavior before. Blaming the moon again. Emotional projection and lunar excuse. Perfect. Blame the moon, blame Mercury being in the microwave, blame whatever you want. Do some tarot readings like they have here in this card. You might, maybe that is what you want to do. Just be like, sorry, it's a full moon, you know, can't come out. And that might be true. Like, I really don't make plans on full moons. I'm busy. Witchcraft and such, you know? And that's another component of the authenticity, you know, when you go through the individuation process and whatnot. You might be returning to your weird self, and that's okay. Uh, Not everybody is going to be upfront about their feelings about that. They might like be seemingly supportive, like in their words, but then they actually like are pulling away from you at the same time. So like you can tell, the truth of the matter. Actions speak louder than words and all that. But if your authenticity pushes people away, like here's your sign that y'all are incompatible. It hurts. It doesn't feel good, but life goes on. Earth keeps turning. So what do we need to know about blaming the moon? And maybe this is a call to pick up some sort of practice. It doesn't necessarily have to be witchcraft. Um, but tarot decks are like 20 bucks, on the low end. Maybe you want to pick one up and try your hand at it. Um, Maybe you want to start getting into astrology. I really like Chani Nicholas and the astrology podcast if you want to really like in-depth, detailed deep dive. But we've got the Four of Wands. Yeah, this is stability, homecoming, the 1111 card, which I'm not really into the idea of twin flames without of self. I like the idea of the unification with self. And so that is aligning with what is authentic to you, what makes you happy, and building that life and then seeing who comes along for the ride. It's not, doing the square peg, round hole thing of, if the 9 to 5 doesn't work for you, it doesn't work for you. And a different 9 to 5 is just a different hamster wheel. Like, I've been trying to make this work for myself for a really long time. It's not for me. It's just not my Piscean creative, way. One of the criticisms when I was a kid was that I wasn't living up to my potential. That was a common thing. Like, well, because my potential was creative. My potential was not what my parents wanted me to be. Was this like office worker? That's not my potential. I have much more potential outside of that. And it was just a fundamental misunderstanding of who I am and me being accepted for that. Now, the income thing is an issue, which I'm still trying to figure out. Because those 9 to 5s, they do pay the steady income and the health insurance and stuff like that. It's too bad we don't do what Ireland does with the UBI for artists. The Fool. Oh, there's a few more. There we go. A new journey. It's so cute. And the Emperor and the Hierophant. Ooh, in reverse. Okay. Yeah, and I was just jibber jabbering about how 9 to 5 doesn't work for me. And then here we have the Fool leaving behind these like institutional structures and rulers and things like that. Huh. Cards really do talk, huh? So maybe you're facing that too, and when I was doing undergraduate admissions counseling a while ago, there were a lot of students that they were going for a second career, and some people we're even going from like a creative to a more like 9 to 5 type of deal, because of life circumstances and whatnot. And so it kind of depends on what your path is. But all this to say, don't fear change. Change comes in your life when it does, for better or for worse. Certainly not going to diminish any sort of difficult changes, with like jump into the finding the meaning, find the meaning in the suffering. If you get there, that's great. If you don't, that's okay too. It's all about living your life in a way that works for you. Because the deal with the 9 to 5 and making money and whatnot, the problem is I don't need a job, I need money. However, the only way for me to make money right now is via a job, so yeah, kind of a loop there. So maybe you're in that too, right now. Kind of facing some judgment, facing some maybe even confusion and bewilderment about like, you've changed so much, and based on what we've talked about here so far, those comments, this might be coming from people who've never known you for one reason or another, whether they really never dive beyond the surface, or you're like me and you were operating as a fragmented self and are working your way through the individuation process. And that's a lot. A lot of stuff changes when you do that. But let's get a little fortune here. Some words of wisdom to carry us through this change, this banishment. And then we'll get a song too, because the special sauce for me for banishment workings, if you like to do those, it's like cleansing work, clearing work, but with some extra spice. Death metal is what I like to do those with. Find it helpful. Nature. Interact with nature in the outdoors, around animals, farmlands, or by the ocean. This will be good for the soul and healing for you. Yeah, grounding. Grounding is always a good idea. And I know winter and such right now, that might make it challenging. But even first thing in the morning, if you can like get outside, and depending on how cold it is, step outside without your jacket on. Like actually feel that cold, see your breath in the air. And you might not be able to stay out there very long due to the cold. That's okay. But that's a great way to really wake up the body. And if you're by the ocean, depending on where you are, it might be warm. Seven Nation Army, the White Stripes. So a little bit of a gentler approach to banishment workings than my death metal. But, what's his bucket? Jack White. He is someone who will absolutely speak up for what he believes in, for the misuse of his songs, for, I think I just saw him post about NASA recently, something like that, but for causes that he believes in. And anybody in that large, like, public arena, it's different than it would be for, like, more private people, because they lose business income and whatnot based on their opinions. I feel like I have a bit more freedom, being just little private citizen me, and I can just spout off and say what I want outside of working hours. And like I'm the person that affects, like, within reason. But maybe that's a signal to be more bold about your moves. Take some risks. You might, speaking up about maybe your political views and things like that. I know that's definitely been a thing that's cost me some social relationships. Those comments that you get, like, can you talk about something else? Or, like, why do you always talk about this and whatnot? I'm like, because it matters. It really matters to me. It's what I feel passionate about. That's why I want to talk about it. And if you lose people by being authentic, that's where your paths were meant to diverge. As much as it sucks, and as not fun as it is, y'all are just headed two different ways. So, but overall, I hope this helps. I hope this resonates, and if it doesn't, I hope the next one does. Thank you so much.